Hi, and welcome to our webinar unveiling the new SA360 UI. I am Jade Orenstein, the VP of Tech and Data Solutions for Incubeta US. I will be moderating today's session. We know that the new SA360 UI has been around for a while, so what we'll really be unveiling today is some tips and tricks that we've picked up along the way, as well as some of our favorite features in the new SA360. Our agenda for today will cover all the different features as well as some demos. But before I jump in, I'm very excited to introduce you to our speakers today, John Thompson and Orlin Krastev, who are GMP consultants for Incubeta US. So just in terms of where we're going to be headed for the next 45 minutes, we're going to have an intro into SA360. For those of you that don't know the platform or would need a refresh on it, and we'll be looking at the upgrade timelines. And finally, we'll be doing a walkthrough of the new features where all of our demos will happen. We'll be hosting a Q&A at the end of the session, so please add any questions that you might have into the question box on the right-hand side of your screen, and we'll answer them at the end. But before I hand over to John, I just want to highlight that the session will be an introduction session, and we'll go through each of the new features, but we won't be going into great detail into any of them. And for this reason, we'll be hosting future webinars where we'll dive deeper into each of the topics, as well as go through the technical implementation of each of them. And I'll share more about this at the end of the session. If before any of the webinars happen and you would like to know more, please feel free to reach out to us at gmp.usa@incubeta.com, and we'll be really happy to have a meeting with you to discuss anything in more detail. So enough from me now, and over to you, John.
Thanks, Jade. So jumping in, before we get into the demo, we'll just cover the basics here. So what is SA360? SA360 is a search engine management platform where you can manage multiple search engines within one tool. So it really eliminates the need for jumping around to different UIs, between Microsoft or Google Ads. It has the capability of managing Google Ads, Microsoft Ads, Baidu, Yahoo, and even some social platforms, Facebook and Twitter ad campaigns. And SA360 is really geared toward enterprise advertisers looking to further automate their campaign management and ultimately scale their search program. And SA360 sits within the Google Marketing Platform, or the GMP. Within the GMP, there's a number of different products, right? You have Display and Video 360, which is the GMP's DSP. You have Campaign Manager, which is the ad server. And then also we have GA Forward or GA 360, and then some reporting platforms as well. SA360 has direct connectivity with all the GMP platforms you see here. Some examples of this in action would be importing conversions from GA360 for bidding, running attribution modeling within Campaign Manager across all of your different ad campaigns, or even creating live dashboards directly in Looker Studio that is tied to real-time performance in SA360. We find that when advertisers use the full stack together, that's when we begin to unlock many of the performance improvements that are common across the industry. And specifically for SA360, SA360 advertisers have a direct one-to-one connection with a corresponding Campaign Manager 360 advertiser, which acts as the ad server or the link between any activity that you're running on the display side or the video side in DV360. Next, we'll look at the 6 key benefits of SA360. And these are really the pillars that we lean on at Incubeta for bringing our clients forward and really making that push into a more enterprise search solution. So the first one being automate across all search. Like I mentioned, you can have shared bid strategy portfolios across different search engines and then optimize toward a common conversion source. This is really powerful in eliminating multiple different tracking tags and bringing all of your search advertising under one roof. The next one would be data connectivity. We can easily import data from offline platforms. We can import conversion or site data from analytics platforms, and even connect to CRM systems for use within optimization and reporting. And this is extremely valuable for more of the lead gen focused advertisers where some of their conversions may not happen 100% online. The third being additional optimization levers. So there's a few new features which we'll cover today that are available in the new UI, such as conversion value rules or custom variable adjustments. And these are really built for value-based bidding giving the advertiser a bit more control over the algorithm. The fourth here being media unification. This plays well into the full stack and really campaign manager. So you can gain a clear understanding of how your different media is working together with floodlight tracking. So you can even combine search, social, display, video, YouTube campaigns all together with a common attribution model within Campaign Manager to really give you some more insights into proper budget allocation and media planning across the entire funnel. Fourth being powerful bid and budget control. So we can have portfolio auction time bid strategies across different search campaigns. There's also some new forecasting tools, which we'll touch on a bit in the new UI, specifically around Performance Center. And the last being dynamic campaign creation. So this is really the power of the enterprise side of SA360, where we can use external data feeds to power campaign, ad group, keyword, and even ad creation at scale through the use of customized templates. So this really removes the need for agency or brand teams to rely on Google Ads Editor or sifting through multiple bulk sheets. So this is really a great feature that ties it all up and really speaks to saving agency teams time on managing at scale. Next, we'll look at a bit of a timeline. So SA360 has gone through a few phases with the rollout, and you'll know this if you're working through some of the migrations alongside Google. But really in Q1 of 2022, the new SA360 was announced globally. About a year later, we started focusing on migrations from existing clients from the old interface to the new interface. This primarily looked at bid migrations from moving active bid strategy management from the old UI over to the new UI. Right now, we're sitting kind of in the middle between Q2 and Q4 of 2023, where Google is focusing on feature support rollout and ultimate parity. This is ensuring that all of those different campaign types are fully supported for reporting, optimization, and management in the new UI. And then really just making sure that the reliance of the old UI is diminished and the new UI has lower latency for actual use. We're really looking forward to 2024, which is approaching soon, when Google has announced that they will begin sunsetting the legacy SA360 platform. So this is a great time to tune into this webinar and learn more on how to take advantage of the new platform. And lastly, there'll be three main features or upgrades to anchor in on, and we'll focus on these today. Whether you're familiar with Google Ads or you've been working in SA360 since some of the double-click days, you'll find some welcome improvements. And the three here being improved engine support. So getting those additional campaign types into SA360. Performance Max is one here that is now fully supported in SA360. The second being a new look with faster navigation. The new SA360 is now synced directly on the back end with Google Ads, so no more manual syncing. This allows for faster trafficking and really just ease of use. And the third being advanced enterprise features. So more bulk features like advanced rules, if statements within rules, and then even uploads to ultimately save your team time in managing search campaigns. And now we'll look to go into a bit of a demo. So I'll pass it over to my teammate Orland to give you a look inside the new platform.
Thanks, John. Let's do a quick orientation in the UI, and I'll just start sharing. Cool. So first, let's start with, we want to cover some of the main differences that you see in the new UI before we jump into the next session where we'll cover some of our favorite headline features. So first, let's start with the top menu navigation here, where you have your accounts picker. You see your, you notice that your account hierarchy name has changed. So for those of you who have used the previous UI, you see that your agency level advertiser is now named manager. Your sub manager, formerly called advertiser, is now called sub manager. And then below you could see all your client accounts, formerly called engines. So this is just a quick note on the hierarchy name change. And on this topic, something to note here is that with the new UI, a lot of the features like different custom columns, labels, can now be set up on both manager and sub-manager level. So just be aware of that and make sure you scope down to the appropriate level when you set them up to make sure that they're not they're siloed away appropriately, and you don't have some unintended access issue with that. So again, just to recap quickly, name change here. So if you're formerly called agency is now manager, advertiser is now renamed to sub-manager, and then you have your engine accounts. So next, you see here on the right-hand side of the top navigation bar, you have your reports. So here you'll find your predefined custom dimension reports. It's just different reports you can pivot and chart. You do have your looker back dashboards as well. And there is a new Search SA360 connector that offers the same functionality as the legacy feature called executive reports, if you're familiar with that. So next, we've got tools and settings. So that's pretty consistent with Google Ads. Here you'll find all your share library, measurement setup, and so on. And finally, here on the right-hand side, you've got a shortcut where you can jump into the rest of the GMP stack for quick access if you want to move on to and jump into some of the other platforms. So something else to note here is that you notice your horizontal campaign navigation bar is gone, and that's been consolidated with the left-hand side navigation bar. So you see here, everything's moved across. Again, consistent with what you're used to in Google Ads. And a couple of things to call out here is the Experience Hub. So let's just quickly navigate there. So the Experience Hub is really aimed at helping you transition from the old UI into the new one, and really keeps sort of a checklist and task list of what's pending, and helps you kind of prepare for the transition in preparation for the phase out in early 2024, as John mentioned. So when you come here to the first tab, tasks, you see you'll be able to schedule your bid strategy and budget management upgrade. So we recommend you do that as soon as it's available to you. This will unlock different features and capabilities in the new UI that relate to bidding and budget management. So definitely schedule that as soon as possible. And you can pick a date that's kind of, it works for you best. And something to note here is if you do have active Search SA360 bid strategies in use, just note that you will not be able to make any changes while the bid strategies being transitioned. So make sure you plan accordingly, and if you do have to make some changes, you can always cancel that and kind of reschedule it afterwards. So below we have a checklist. So just have a quick review here and see if there's anything pending and you need to kind of complete and cover. And lastly here, we have the feature status. So this is a quick kind of FAQ type list of some of the most common name changes, like the account hierarchy I mentioned, or just any other sort of questions you may have. That's, well, if you're trying to find a feature or wondering what it's called now, where it is, you can come here and find kind of a quick summary of all of them included. Below, we have some of the new engine feature supports that's come with the new UI. So most notably, things like the Performance Max supports, things like discovery, campaign capabilities, and so on. But really, you can find a more kind of detailed list and go through all of them here. And the last thing is, if you want to pull up a quick tab with all this key shortcuts, you can hit the Shift button and the question mark. And you see a panel with some of the most common keyboard shortcuts that will help you navigate the platform and save some time clicking around. So with that, let's move back into our next section, which will focus on bid strategies. Cool. So bid strategies, really one of the most fundamental change to the new UI has to do with the way bid strategies have changed, and really how conversions are tied to your bid strategy setup and bidding in the new UI. So that's really one of the main changes here is the new use of conversion goals, and we'll help you go through these and set them up quickly next in a demo. But before that, let's go through some of the main bid strategy core principles and some of the main, I guess, the three main goals supported by your SA360 bid strategy options, and quickly cover that first. So first, we've got your conversion bidding. So this again, for conversions that do not have any value assigned to them. So you're looking at things like your targeted cost per acquisition or maximize conversions. So really focusing the strategy on maximizing the number of conversions within a specific cost per acquisition target, or in the case of maximize conversions, which is a Google Ads bid strategy, just maximizing the total number of conversions generated within your budget. So typical use cases are things like lead gen, any type of signups or downloads where you have conversion events that do not have any conversion value assigned to them. So this is great if you're just looking at driving volume and not necessarily any specific value. And of course, the kind of drawback and downside is that all these conversion actions are being valued equally. So you're not really able to tie in any kind of business context and any deeper signals in terms of how valuable those conversions ended up being for your business. So next we have value bidding, which is you'll be familiar with things like target return on ad spend or maximize conversion revenue bid strategies. And here, these are based on aiming to maximize the conversion value generated at a specific return on ad spend targets, or in the case of maximize conversion value, just maximizing the total conversion value generated within your budget. And of course, the most typical examples here are things like e-commerce and retail, where you're selling different products, and each transaction has a different cost and revenue associated with it. But really actually extends to a lot of other industries, and we've been pushing this as a core feature to use for a lot of traditional lead gen based businesses, where to give you an example, say insurance companies or education, automotive, really is kind of applicable to most businesses. And to give you an example with the insurance company is, you would have your policy premiums would be different. So, the conversion value generated by different leads can therefore vary greatly. So you really want to be able to use something like value-based bidding, where you can leverage the bidding algorithms and make sure they can focus on attracting higher value conversions that will ultimately deliver a greater return on investment. And it's the same case can be made for things like education or automotive, where you're really trying to drive towards business objectives and optimize for quality and really drive kind of the most impactful actions for the business, as opposed to just look at volume and having a set target CPA, for example. So really, this is a core feature for us, and we do plan on pushing a lot of content around this. In future webinars, we'll specifically focus on value-based bidding. And again, just the key takeaway here being, it's a profit-driven approach, as it ties directly to the revenue generated by each of the conversions. So it doesn't just aim at achieving conversions at a certain cost, but specifically it would prioritize conversions that are expected to generate more revenue and therefore improving your overall profitability and driving growth. So if you haven't had success with this, or just not sure how to set something like that up for your business, feel free to reach out to us, or make sure you tune into all the future webinars we'll have focused around more advanced bidding and value-based bidding in specific. And lastly, here we've got the impression share bidding, and that's really this strategy focuses more on achieving a target impression share in the search engine result pages. So this is typically used when visibility is the primary goal rather than conversion value or conversions. So for instance, you may want your ad to appear on, say, 80% of all eligible top of page impressions. So you can use target impression share for something like that. So again, it's really not really performance focused. It does not really allow for any efficiency. It will definitely lead to inflated overall costs in your cost per clicks or just overall conversions, if any are generated. So we really only advise you use that in sort of specific cases where awareness is really a main objective. And next, we've got a couple of sort of different tools and controls to help us manage our bid strategies and monitor them and manage our bid budgets. We won't cover all of them today. John mentioned some things like the conversion values, things like custom variables, all those things that are meant to help manipulate your conversion values so you can really like build in these business signals and context into your bidding, really help drive towards business outcomes. A few to call out here is things like seasonality events, where you can, for instance, decrease your conversion rates or adjust them after a sort of a seasonality type conversion rate increase. So think something like a Black Friday, or other things like your data exclusion, where you can remove certain periods, short periods of where maybe your tracking was broken, and you want to make sure that doesn't affect the bidding decisions made. So with that, let's jump back into the platform and look at how to set up your conversion actions. And just give me a second here. Okay, there we go. So like I said, this is really one of the main changes. So if you're familiar with the old legacy UI, you know that you had a account default goal set up on advertiser level, which is now sub-manager level, and then you managed all your different bid strategies separately, sort of in a portfolio style, and you had to manage all your different formula columns and so on. So the new framework that you see here is using your conversion goals that you find on a summary page here under conversions on sub-manager level. So we recommend you come here and really review this and organize things into groups. And let's just quickly go over the framework and actually the logic and how this works. So you see we have a couple of preset categories: purchase, add to cart, and so on, leads. And really the list covers most typical use cases. And then your conversion actions, you group them accordingly within each category. And this enables the platform and the system to really know what sort of the business context of all your conversion actions. So try and categorize as many of them as possible. And then each conversion action can be either set as primary, which means bidding signals will be used for bidding signals, or secondary, which essentially means will just be used for reporting. So that will be your kind of micro conversions. So we always recommend that you keep just your macro conversion as primary, and you can come here, quickly edit your goals, choose an account default goal. So in this case, we chosen purchase, and we have both of our kind of purchase tags set as primary. So this is just a quick example. Your account default goals will be used for things like campaign setup. When you go through a campaign setup, these will be the conversion goals that by default are selected for your campaign to optimize towards. And you still have the manual flexibility should you want to have sort of different bundle of conversion actions on campaign level. You can use something like custom goals, where you can group together conversion actions and essentially override their action optimization setting here. So if you choose to build a custom conversion goal that includes some of your secondary micro conversions, those will override your settings here on sub-manager level, and they'll become biddable on campaign level. So this is really useful for cases where maybe you have sort of a campaign that's more in a mid-upper funnel, and you want to include some micro conversions in that, but you don't want to, you still want to keep them as secondary. You don't want to include them in a conversion column, so you can bundle them together in something like a conversion custom goal here. So it's very much the same as the conversion action sets in Google Ads if you're using those. It can also be used for things like using sort of engine-specific conversion goals. So think things like store visits, store sales direct, things that you wouldn't necessarily have a floodlight for because it's strictly like a Google Ads feature, for example. Then here you can still use custom goals for that. We typically don't recommend you use that across the board. We think it's best practice to definitely categorize everything accordingly, use your account default goals. And again, this would enable for more conversion sharing across the accounts, and just kind of tidier reporting, and enable the system to know what's really the business context behind your conversion actions. So a couple of things to note here on the left-hand side. Under settings, you have your conversion sharing. So you want to switch that on. This helps Search Ads 360 shared conversion data with Google Ads. So if you want to use auction time bidding in any of your bid strategies, this has to be enabled. So definitely come here and switch that on. And below, we have a couple more of the sort of the advanced bidding related features that we'll cover in future webinars, such as custom variables, your value rules, where you're really able to, essentially manipulate and change the different conversion value behind your conversion actions based on different dimensions. So this is similar to the legacy use of formula columns, which are no longer biddable. And instead, you have sort of a bulk, a list of new functionalities like that. It can be used in a similar way. So here's an example of a couple of dimensions we can use. In your account, you may find location is another one, and you can layer those together and make different adjustments. And that can be done both at campaign sub-manager level and also on individual campaign level. So that's a quick overview of how to get you started with conversion, with the conversion action setup. So if you've just migrated your bid strategy, or if you just onboarded on the platform, make sure you come here and you review those here in the summary panel and organize them accordingly. And with that, let's jump back into the slides and cover our next headline feature, which is the Performance Center. So the Performance Center is a new feature in Search Ads 360 that incorporates planning, budgeting, and your reporting tasks. It's a combination of the Performance Planner that you have and may have used already in Google Ads, and the legacy budget management tool that you had in a previous Search Ads 360 experience. So how this works is you organize campaigns into different campaign groups that don't overlap together and have similar share a budget and a similar and an objective. And then you can create a performance plan that essentially has a defined spend amount for a specific time period, and tie that to each campaign group. So it just unlocks a host of new opportunities to do forecasting, what if scenarios, automate your entire budget pacing. So if you're working with, say you're an agency and you have, a large number of, different advertisers or different sort of engine accounts within an advertiser that have a lot of different budget lines going on, and you're struggling and you're, spending too much time just doing budget pacing, this is one quick way to definitely automate the process, and it will allow you to, sort of keep a tab on pacing to date, sort of your forecast versus how you pace to date, and so on, and do so both for pacing and performance. And then the second component to that is adding the budget bid strategy, which really is a unique bid strategy to Search Ads 360, and its primary focus is to make sure your budget is spent, but you do have that second component of tying some performance metrics to it. So that could be things like your target cost per acquisition, return on ad spend, or have something like maximize clicks where you can put a CPC cap. So really it's kind of a multivariate type bid strategy where it will still focus mainly on spending your budget across your campaign groups and over the specified given period, but it will still have those targets attached and aimed, to hit that efficiency cap that you've given it, as a secondary thing. So really, if you're really focused on efficiency and performance, we'd still recommend you use something like target cost per acquisition or conversion, return on ad spend type bid strategy. Those will still be better in terms of control and efficiency. But if you do have a case where you're flexible on the performance and really the main objective is to make sure the budgets are spent on time, then this is a great tool, and it can save you a lot of time. And again, just to highlight here the key takeaway that you don't necessarily have to use the budget bid strategy. So you can purely use this as a advanced forecasting and pacing tool. And it will just save you a ton of time. And managing different budgets manually, especially if you have kind of a manual budget pacing process, this could really save you a lot of time. And it also helps with your decision making and kind of deriving insights from looking at all these different scenarios and looking at different budget shifts you can make across campaign groups and across engines and client accounts. So it's really, it's definitely check it out. We think it's really underused, and we're definitely planning to do a whole kind of webinars and feature session on it. And with that, I'm gonna hand it over to John to cover our next main headlight feature.
Awesome, thanks, Orlin. Cool. So jumping in here to templates. If you've ever worked with me, you'll know this is one of my favorite features, just because I think it's so cool of leaning into automation and kind of creating campaigns, keywords, and ads at scale, rather than kind of building them manually as we used to a few years back. So this is a new feature. It's a bit rebranded in the new UI, but it's called templates. And this is a mixture of inventory management campaigns and ad builder. So now it's in one unified workflow that's a lot easier to use and kind of get the hang of. So here's an example that we have on the slide of templates in action. So this would be specifically for an e-commerce retailer who sells shoes. So we could have a feed connected to a template within SA360 that then outputs ads, keywords, campaigns, or ad groups. In this example, we're just showing an RSA creation, but also campaigns, ad groups layered on top. So what we have here is a Google Sheets feed, and this feed that's connected doesn't need to be Google Merchant Center. It can be anything, a CSV that's dropped into an FTP. It could be a Google Sheets kind of custom-made feed. There's really a lot of opportunities here, and please reach out if you're interested in something like this. This doesn't just apply to e-commerce. We have a lot of non-retail clients using this as well, even on the lead gen side. So in this example, we have different products, organized by row in a Google Sheets feed that is plugged into SA360. And you can see here we have within SA360 different rules or logic set up. So we can say create campaigns, one unique campaign per product category. So that will create a specific campaign for each unique product category here. So in this example, we would have 3 campaigns, one for running shoes, one for casual shoes, and one for sandals. You can then build some hierarchy into that and say, within these campaigns, build me one ad group for every unique combination of product and color. So you can see how the system's starting to understand that we have a specific account structure in mind, and we can set that up to read based on what's in the feed. Again, this is just a set of rules. Lastly, you can see an RSA here, which is a mix of static and dynamic copy, where we're saying brand, which is the brand of the company here, in this case Zappos, input dynamically, gender, product, shop now, starting at would be static, and you can dynamically pull in the price from the feed. And this will always be linked as long as you set it as such. So if the price changes in the feed coming from your merchant center or your website, the price will automatically change in the ad copy on the fly. So this is very, very nice for not having to kind of manage a lot of those promotional changes or anything that may change on the fly, especially if you have a lot of different products or content coming to the site. So you can see the output here, for example, would be Women's Revolution 2, shop now, starting at $68.99. And that information is pulled directly from the feed. There is, aside from the static text, there is no information that needs to be manually managed here. So the power of this is really automatically creating new campaigns, powering live copy, powering live keywords from the shared template that connects to a data feed. We see a lot of advertisers using this specifically around offers, promotions, and even used for evergreen campaigns. If you wanted to start off a brand new Google Ads campaign, but didn't want to do all of the Google editor bulk sheet uploads for the campaign structure, you could actually just plug in a feed and use this feature instead. And we have some experience doing that as well on our end. So jumping in quickly to the UI, we're going to look at the new templates feature, which was just released. recently in the new UI. So in SA360, you'll want to navigate up under the tools and settings section. You'll see templates with that new badge there. We have an example here, which is specifically just around RSA creation for ad copy. So here you can see we have our feeds connection. So if there was an external data feed, you would connect it here. That would then be present for linking in the templates. This is where we have templates. So if you have an extensive build out, you would expect multiple different rows here for each of your different templates. Each template is doing something different in the account or generating a new item. Here we have new RSAs for August. Responsive search ads are being generated. The data source here isn't a feed, but it's going to be ad groups, and it's actually going to use business data. Business data was kind of the former name in the previous UI, but it's now called custom dimensions. And they're essentially like labels that you can tie to any entity in SA360. So this is pulling from these labels that are tied to ad groups. You can see the evaluation time. If this was live, you can see what was created. And then even you get error reporting here. If something went wrong, you could go in and quickly fix it. So jumping into the flow, you'll see here there's three main steps. The one is going to be the template settings. And this is really just giving the template the logic and the background on what you want to use this for. So you can see here, you can pick your ad groups that you want the output going to. So it'll actually give you a selector of which ad groups, in this case for RSAs, that you want the ad to be pushed out to. Data source, in this case, we're just going to use custom dimensions, which are those business data labels. You can even add labels on the fly once new ads get created. If you do have reporting views that snap towards certain reporting assets, and then also a status here. So you could say pause a certain ad if something happens in the feed or the label. So you don't even have to do this dynamically. So for example, here we have a custom dimension tied to each ad group that says in stock, yes or no. If this says no, the system will automatically pause these ads and they'll stop serving once that trigger is switched. And that can be done dynamically from a feed. So there's really no human interference here needed. And the reason you do this is you wouldn't have to delete the ads. You could keep it as paused, get the historical reporting on it, and then potentially activate it in the future instead of having to create a brand new one. So there is some logic you can build in here. The next is we're going to go to ad settings. And this is the usual flow for creating an RSA, right? Your final URL, which in this case is a static value. This is going to be our website. The display paths, which is going to be the vanity URL display paths on the end of the URL. Again, another static text. Our headline, Incubeta, a Google sales partner, is a static text combination. You can see the syntax here is just going to be open parentheses quote. That indicates a static text. And then here for the second headline, we're actually using a mix of static and dynamic text. You can see here, shop and today are both static. Those will never change. Every ad will say shop today, but we're actually pulling in a custom dimension from the ad group level, which is giving us product. So this will pull directly from the ad group and potentially be different for each ad that's output. And you'll see that in the next screen. If you are using any dynamic characters in here, you'll just want to be cautious of the character count, right? Because since this is dynamic, this could technically push the headline over the character count. So in that case, you can use a fallback headline where we recommend just using full static text so that the system can default back to that. So if you use this and this dynamic piece forces this headline over 30 characters, the system will automatically default back to the fallback, which should just be static text under 30 characters. So it's smart enough to understand if ads get, ad pieces are too long. Same here for the next headline. You can see available in static plus dynamic country. So the country availability is actually a label that we have applied to the ad group as well. And then some descriptions, which are just static text for this example. So and then you can also add your standard tracking, your URL tracking or custom parameters for analytics here. So next, and this is kind of the best feature, I think, is actually getting a preview before you set anything live. So all of this is paused, nothing's being created. This is where you can QA it a bit before. So you can see here that all these ads are slightly different. So we have 3 ad groups, each with different labels applied. So you can see here, the first one, all the headlines are the same in the first line, Incubeta, a Google sales partner. You can see that product is actually being swapped out dynamically for each of the different fields in the headline. So we have DV360 for the first ad group, GA4, and SA360 for the third. So those are dynamically being pulled in to supplement our static ad copy. You can see here, even for country, that's being pulled in as well. US and UK, Australia. Once you understand this, this is extremely powerful to really build this out and create very custom tailored ads that really stick out to the user. We usually see very high click-through rates, lower CPCs on these kind of ads that they really do drive more quality users. Quality scores are a lot higher usually in this case as well, right? Just because you're not using that same evergreen copy across the entire account. Descriptions pull in, landing pages, display path, and you can see the second display path here is also dynamic. So that all pulls in nicely there. Again, this can be built out, almost infinitely, where I've seen entire accounts powered by this feature where campaigns and ad groups are dynamically created. Once you have that feed, that data feed, there's really kind of eliminates the use for some of the manual campaign creation, especially because when these are created, they go live into market immediately. The only real delay you're waiting for is the approval for Google policy for the ads to be active. So this is a feature we have a lot of experience in. It's definitely, I think, welcomed from Google that they've put some more investment into recreating this product. But yeah, please reach out if you're interested, and we definitely have some experience with clients across all different verticals using this feature. So now I think we're coming up on time here, but we'll jump back toward the slides to handle some live Q&A with Jade.
Thanks, John. Cool. Thank you to everyone who submitted questions, and thanks, John and Orlin, for all that information. It was really great, useful, and I hope everyone benefited from it. John, I'm going to start with you with a question around value-based bidding. The question is, how can an advertiser run value-based bidding without capturing revenue values?
Yeah, that's a great question. So usually e-commerce advertisers, right, we have revenue coming from a tag on site, right? So revenue is just coming in and we can bid toward that immediately. That's the best case scenario. With a lot of advertisers, that doesn't happen, right? The revenue that's realized doesn't happen. It happens offline. It happens down funnel. So we don't have the ability to natively track that. What you can do in the new SA360 is actually assign static revenue values to action-oriented conversions. So if you're a lead gen advertiser and you have, let's say, 2 different conversions on site, maybe a button click and a lead submit, those are just counter floodlights. We can actually assign static values to those to say one is worth $100, one is worth $200. And that would actually get us into value-based bidding, right? Because now every conversion has an associated conversion value. And we can essentially combine those together and tell the algorithm we want to run a ROAS model off of that, where it would prioritize, obviously, the lead form submit that has a higher revenue value. So it is doable for retail or e-commerce focused advertisers.
Amazing, thank you. And Orlin, someone had a really good question around the new UI and data. So will historic backdata be backfilled into the new UI?
Yes, so you should have data back to 2019, so January 2019.
Okay, fantastic. And then, John, will ad copy testing return in the new SA360, and will it result in better insights into RSA ads?
Oh, that's a great question. I think they're referring to, there was a feature in the old UI called ad copy testing, but it was deprecated, and I don't believe it's planned to come back in the new UI, at least in the initial rollouts. For that, I would recommend probably a mixture of 2 options. Definitely rely on Google Ads, because you will get the RSA combination reporting, where it kind of gives you the impression share breakdown of each RSA that is serving. I would lean on that in Google Ads. That should eventually pull into SA360 given the native integration, but that's not available just yet, given the platform's still kind of moving along. The second one, I would say drafts and experiments would probably be better for that, just because you can isolate individual conversion performance. And with that setting that Orlin mentioned, conversion sharing, you'll actually get your floodlight conversions pushed into Google Ads in the conversions column if you do enable that. So you would be able to get your SA360 source of truth conversion reporting in Google Ads for RSA analysis. But right now, that feature is, I don't believe it's planned right off the bat in SA360.
Perfect. And then for anyone here, can templates be used to create or dynamically update ad extensions, so site links, promo extensions, and callouts? Orlin, I don't know if you want to give that a shot, or John, who wants to take that?
I can take that. I believe, unless Orlin, you can do for templates, campaign, ad group, RSAs, keyword, negative keywords and site links. I believe that's all that's available right now. So you're just going to get those native site links. The other, I guess, smaller extension pieces are not supported yet. But that's all I see currently in the platform. So site links, yes.
Okay, great. And then, John, I think you covered this in the content, but there's a question around Google Merchant Center. Do you need a Google Merchant Center feed to run templates? I believe you said you can run it off different sources, but do you want to clarify that?
Yeah, I mean, you don't need one. So obviously, if you're not an e-commerce retailer or e-commerce advertiser, you don't have a Merchant Center, product feed, right? So you do not need that. You could connect a Google Sheets feed that you make yourself and just outline all of your column headers, and then those would pull in if you link it. So that is an option as well. You can even do just a CSV export from your site, but yeah, you do not need Merchant Center. That's obviously preferred for e-commerce advertisers because it has all of the product pricing information in there. The more information pulling in, the more creative we can get, but you do not need that.
Well, that's great that that's not like a blocker to using the template, which is fantastic. And then, Orlin, there's a question around custom conversion goals, which you covered in your content. What do you typically recommend using them for?
Sure. So again, typically use them for maybe conversion actions that you do not have a floodlight for. So things like your Google Ads, store visits, anything like that. So that's one use case, or really any other bundle of different conversion actions that you may not have selected as primary in your conversion action settings. Yeah, but as a rule of thumb, try and use your default conversion goals as much as possible. So we see some of our clients, have not had any of them categorized, so they're just using conversion custom goals for everything. So that wouldn't be recommended because you really, it helps identifying what those conversion actions are. So categorizing them and setting your account defaults.
Okay, fantastic. And then, John, in terms of best practice for different engine campaigns, what is the best practice for different engine campaigns in SA360 bid strategies?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's definitely, I don't think there's a clear directive here. It's definitely more on KPIs and the overall direction, or, also based on budgets, right? Like if your budgets are fluid between engines, then, we would recommend adding both Bing and Google campaigns into a shared bid strategy, especially tactic wise. But, I think to start, if you're just kind of dipping your toes into SA360, is probably mirroring your setup that currently exists. So having separate bid strategies for Google Ads and Bing Ads. And then once we do build up a bit of performance history against the floodlight or any other shared conversion source, potentially combining them. We do look to consolidate bid strategies where possible, just because that arms the algorithm with a bit more data and especially dedupe conversions across different networks or platforms. So I would say start out granular and then kind of move to consolidation if you're comfortable with performance, because that's what we usually see yields the best results.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I have two more questions. So, Orlin, next one will be for you. Sorry, is it better to use conversion value rules or custom variables instead?
Sure. Yeah. So they're a little different. Your custom variables or your U variables are your kind of first-party data tied to your floodlights, whereas the value rules are, you've got your preset 3 dimensions that we covered that you can change your conversion value, your floodlight conversion value based on those. So we typically recommend you start with your custom values and try and use that. And for whatever, if you have a use case for something that has to be used by U variables, then you can use that in addition. So layer them accordingly and start with the custom values first. And that, again, that can be done both at campaign level and your sub-manager level.
Great, thank you. Then our last question today before we wrap up, I'm going to give this to you, John. So how do you create or connect a non-retail feed to SA360?
Yeah, it's a great question. So right now, with the new platform rolling out, I don't believe there's a self-serve method for this just yet. The current process we go through is just reaching out to Google AM and having them connect for us. There's a form that we fill out that just goes over like feed specifics, any security for the feed, right? Because if we are connecting kind of a human-made feed, we want some security measures in place with that. But we have a form that we can submit directly with Google and get that connected on the back end. I've heard potential rumors of maybe a self-serve tool coming in the future, which I think we'd all welcome. But right now, it's more of a manual process that we can definitely help facilitate with your specific GMP resource.
Great, thank you. So in terms of the upcoming webinars that I hinted towards at the beginning of the session, we will be having a session on value-based bidding, which will be a full deep dive, 1 hour deep dive into value-based bidding. We'll look at performance center, as Orlin mentioned, as well as having a full dedicated session to SA360 templates. The dates of these will be revealed in due time. We will make sure that they're quite soon before the upgrade actually needs to happen next year. So please do keep your eye out for that. But as I said at the beginning, if you do want to have a session with us one-on-one in terms of any of these topics or anything else around the GMP stack, SA360, or anything within the digital marketing realm, please do reach out to us. It will be gmp.usa@incubeta.com. We can drop the email in the chat. But please do reach out. We really are very excited and happy to be speaking to you guys about these topics. So thank you so much for joining us and for sitting through the full 51 minutes of our webinar. We really enjoyed hosting you guys, and we're really looking forward to the next one. So hope you all have a great day and see you soon.